Now all I need to say is cheese soufflé, and I know I've got your attention. I adore cheese soufflé, and I know many of you out there love it too. This is not any cheese soufflé though. This is a double cooked cheese soufflé, which means it's even more decadent and rich than the classic soufflé. Now first things first, some milk into a pot, and we're going to warm it up and flavour it with a little bit of rosemary. I'll just take a little sprig from this bush here and then just rub it in your fingers just to extract a few of the oils from this hard herb, and then place it into the milk, and that will perfume the milk. It'll really make a difference to the end result. I need to melt 50 grams of butter. So essentially we're making a white sauce to start this soufflé, along with some flour, and we need 1/4 cup of flour in with our butter, and then just on a low heat we're going to mix that and cook off the rawness of the flour. So once it starts to form into a ball, this here is called a roux, we can start gradually adding our milk. Now I like to change over from a wooden spoon to a whisk just so we don't get any lumps, and then little by little we're going to add our flavoured milk. So small amount in and whisk. And then you'll see it start to thicken up and absorb all that milk, and then the last bit of milk can go in, and we'll just hold back the rosemary because it's done its job, and then we'll whisk again. And once it becomes almost gluey and sticky, which it is now, look at that, perfect, we'll take it off the heat. And now we can add the cheese and some nutmeg. So first a good pinch of nutmeg, and then I'll add half of this blue cheese. Crumble the blue cheese in. Now the blue cheese I like to use for this recipe is a mild blue cheese, like a Dolce Gorgonzola, because it's not too strong and it doesn't overpower the whole dish. Now I'm just going to whisk that in, and you'll see it start to dissolve into our bechamel. Fantastic. Now that it's cooled down just a little bit, just by whisking, we'll add 5 egg yolks. So in they go. You don't want to put this in when it's really, really hot because it'll scramble the egg yolks. And now just very gently mix and incorporate those egg yolks, giving it a stir, and the sauce will now loosen up a bit. Now after I've incorporated those egg yolks into the cheese sauce, I'm just going to allow it to cool to room temperature. This is crucial so we can add our egg whites. If you add this when it's still warm with the egg whites, we're not going to get that lift that we want. Now this mixture has cooled down nicely, so it's time to add the egg whites. Now I've whipped these so we've got firm peaks. We had 5 egg yolks into this cheese mixture, and then the remaining 5 egg whites we've mixed up, so it's the perfect amount. And then we add 1/3 of the egg whites, and then just, you can be a little bit rough with the first third because you want to incorporate it with that thick bechamel cheese sauce. So mixing it up, not being as gentle. Now for the second third, we're going to be a little bit more careful and just gently fold it in. Once I've incorporated the egg whites and this cheese mixture together, I'll place it into Dario molds. So I'm going to separate this into 4 1-cup Dario molds, so just like this. And what I've done is just placed a little bit of butter in the molds with some flour so they don't stick, because we'll need to get them out of the molds to double bake them. And then the soufflés go in the oven for 20 minutes at 180 degrees. Now the soufflés have come out of the oven. They look gorgeous, golden brown. They've puffed up, but now you need to let them cool and deflate a little bit before we cook them for the second time. In this pot, I'm just turning the heat on to a medium to high heat, and I'll add about 500 millilitres of cooking cream. Cooking cream's great because it's not going to split when it's boiled. So that's boiling now, along with a little bit more because that was 300 mils, so about half. Second one. Now while that's boiling, I'll add some dry sherry. Sherry, blue cheese are a beautiful combination. You could also add a little bit of white wine here or a little bit of brandy. So in with the sherry, and just with a palette knife, just scrape around the souffle. And if you've buttered and floured it well, it should just pop out just like that. And I'll take out the second one and then pop it there. I've also buttered my gratin dish just so they don't stick. Make it a lot easier for the wash up later on. And then the third one, and then the fourth one. And that can go in there. Now, if you want to do this ahead of time, you can actually make these soufflés, take them out of the Dario molds and then pop them in the fridge. And then the next day, you can do the second cook and make the cream sauce and then put them in the oven. So if you're doing this for a dinner party, fantastic way to get ahead of time so you're not stressed in the kitchen. All right, let's take this cream off the heat. It smells fantastic with the addition of that sherry. And I'll place it over here. And then I'll just whisk in that delicious blue cheese. And you'll see that melts quite easily. And now all we do is pour this cream over the soufflés and around. Gosh, that looks good, doesn't it? And it is a cheesy soufflé. So naturally, I need to add more cheese to this. A little bit of Parmesan cheese to make it look fantastic and golden brown on the top. So just sprinkle that over. Be quite generous with it. Now this goes back into the oven at 180 degrees for 20 minutes or until that cheese has melted and that sauce has thickened up even more. Oh, that is spectacular. Bubbly goodness. It smells like melted cheese. I just love this. You know, this is a really special dish to do as an entree, as I was saying before, for dinner parties, but even just for a really delicious dinner for a family of 4 people, or if you've got your friends around. I like to serve it with a little rocket salad, just with a bit of lemon juice, some pepper and olive oil, or if you like, just some simple chives. Now I'm just going to gather the chives, I'll cut the base off, and then I'll finely chop the chives. Now, because this dish is really rich and decadent, you do need a little bit of freshness there. So I do suggest that peppery rocket or these chives just to freshen it up a little bit. So I'll just gather these chives, sprinkle it over the top. You know, that's a classic. That's a French classic, showing off that delicious blue cheese cream sauce and the soufflés. That one is probably one of my favourites so far of Everyday Gourmet Season 7.